I think the fear of being cringy and being embarrassed is one of the biggest roadblocks to creating art, or at very least sharing art. And I know that it has been for me over the years, so I figured we could talk about it. Come along as we dissect what this means, maybe different ways of working with it, how to get over it, maybe. I got my coffee here, we got the thing. I bought a new microphone, so I have my hands free now. Yeah, man, let's fucking go.
I don't need to change myself, I just need to love myself. I don't need a place where I can run away and hide.
Okay, so what is being cringy? To me, it's when you create something that you put everything into and people are like, that sucks. It's like you bare your soul, you're trying to be as authentic as you can, and it comes out and people are like, bro, this is like bad teenage beat poetry, or whatever it is. The idea that you've tried really hard at something and everyone's like, this is the worst. I remember like the fear of being cringy for me was put in really early in like primary school or elementary school. I remember like there was a big phrase of like try hard. People would be like, oh, you fucking try hard, or like lame. That was massive. They would use that to tear you down. And if anyone tried to be like good at anything, immediately it was uncool. You weren't allowed to like stand out, you know? And I think it's a real shame because like the best art necessitates you being very open and being very vulnerable. So if someone's to turn around and tell you that your vulnerability and like potentially who you are is cringy, that's pretty brutal, man. That's pretty fucking brutal. For me personally, the fear of being cringy wasn't really real until I started writing music which like meant things to me, which like felt like they were, you know, authentic and I was trying to express myself emotionally. Before then, I didn't care. I like doubled down on it and I thought it was funny and I was like part of the thing. I mean, the video that I'm most known for, potentially only known for, is one of the cringiest things ever. And I think that's why it went so popular, because people couldn't tell if it was real or if it was fake or whatever. I've also done a lot of other stuff which is incredibly cringy. And sometimes, most of the time back in the day, it was intentional in a way. But when I was thinking about this video, I started wondering why that was. And it's not that deep, but it might be interesting to talk about. Part of it is potentially like a bit of a creative defense mechanism, because part of me has always wanted to be that guy, you know, like the sensitive singer-songwriter who sings about love and stuff. And I'm getting there now. But another part of me also really did not like that guy. So, you know, part of my thing was to create this beautiful piece of art and then just ruin it. Just completely fucking ruin it by singing about dicks or like switching it up halfway. And it was kind of like, yeah, I can do this, but I choose not to. And I choose to make it cringy. And I did stand-up comedy for a few years. I did it professionally for a little while. And I noticed that idea, it's not the same, but it's similar. The idea of using like cringe or comedy as like a shield is very real, man. It's very real, especially when you're in those communities where everyone's just like comedy all the time. And it's like, in a way you're expressing yourself, but you're also not. And one of the crazy things I found was that sometimes I'll be having full conversations with people thinking that we're like connecting, and then 2 minutes into it, they'll be like, what did you think of that bit? And I was like, what? And they're like, that bit we just did. I was like, what, you mean talking? And they're like, no, I was trying out new material. And I was like, what? It was really confusing. It was very confusing, and it's weird. It's weird. Anyway, when I stopped wanting to do comedy in my like sort of mid-20s, when I discovered I had feelings, whole thing, one of the biggest things that stopped me sharing my music and my lyrics was that fear of being cringe, of being like, man, I've spent, you know, weeks, months writing this heartfelt thing, which is the core of how I feel about this. And the fear of someone being like, this is, like an angsty teenager wrote this. That was so real, man. And I didn't share anything for a long time, like years before I felt okay sharing anything. And then even when I did, I shared it to a very small group of friends, like people that I trusted with my life, and that was how I slowly did it. So I get it. And I've had students who was one of their biggest fears is like being embarrassed or being cringy. Even in like one-on-one lessons, they don't want to do something because of fear of like of doing it wrong and being embarrassed, or me like calling them out even though they're trying, which sucks. And I would never do that. And I hope if you're a teacher or anything, like just don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. If someone's trying to do something, just fucking encourage them or shut up. We've talked a little bit about what cringe is, what the fear of being cringe is. Now let's figure out maybe some ways to get over it, or work through it with a couple of top handy tips. Firstly, I would say, as someone who has experienced a lot of it, it's not that bad, man. It's really not that bad. If you do something, even if you try your hardest and then the response is, that's cringy or that sucks or that's embarrassing, it's okay, man. Maybe it hurts your feelings for a little while, but then you just get back up and you do it again. I think as far as like bad artistic experiences go, I've probably had almost all of the ones that people are afraid of. Like, I've bombed on stage as a comedian. I've been booed off stage as a musician. I've had people have like whole campaigns online telling me about how shit and cringy I am. Like, anything that you can think of. I played wrong notes, huge wrong notes in big bands where like at the wrong time, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, anything that you can think of, I've probably experienced it. And the reality is it's not that bad, which kind of makes it like anything else. Like, the fear of something is way greater than the thing itself. And I used to try to do this with my students, just make them do shit, trick them into doing shit so they can feel what it's like to make it happen. And then you're like, see, it's not that bad. But I also understand that until you go through it, it's still really scary. But there are ways of kind of like feeling that fear in a safer environment. So for example, you could sing a song to a couple of friends, or you could show someone that you love and would never be mean to you. You could show them something and then start with that. And it's not about hiding yourself from real criticism. It's just about the first steps. You don't need to worry about that. People are going to criticize whatever you do. If you can avoid that for as long as possible, do it, Build that resilience slowly. I remember when I was studying musical theater, we would have these workshops where we would all perform to each other. And I was a fucking adult by this point, so I had done a lot of stuff already, but I had always wanted to do really well in performing, and I had a lot of, a lot of pressure on myself to do really well. And I was like, man, this is a little bit unsustainable. So I intentionally started performing songs that like I kind of knew I couldn't do, like something that was too high that I knew I was going to crack. Not for the purpose of being shit, but just to see what would happen if I was in that situation, trying my best and then legitimately failing. And this was a really wholesome space where everyone was very supportive and stuff. So there wasn't any real fear, but still you're performing in front of people. You've still got your heart rates up. You're freaking out about other things. You're nervous, whatever. Yeah. So that's something interesting you can experiment with. Tip number 2 is kind of counterintuitive, but I think it's doubling down on being authentic and being honest in what you create. Because in my head, if someone is genuinely presenting themselves in whichever art form or in whichever form they can or choose, that's not cringy. That's beautiful. It's incredible. It's vulnerable. It's human. It's one of the best things we can do, I think. And so even if, for whatever reason, the result someone thinks is cringy or whatever, first of all, fuck them. Second of all, it's not, because it's you. It's who you are. How can your experience be cringy? It just can't, because it's real. And there will be people out there who will still call it out, but those people are just fucks, you know? They're not making stuff. Who cares? Tip number 3 to think about is kind of everything is cringe until it's not. You know what I mean? If you watch anyone's career, the stuff that they were doing at first could potentially be considered cringy. But by the time they get to the point where people have seen what they're doing or they're mature or whatever, that stuff is, you know, beautiful, the best art in the world, whatever. But it's all part of the journey. You have to start somewhere. No one just starts being incredible, except for this guy. No one starts being amazing at what they're doing. You know, everyone starts a little bit cringy probably, and it's not that big of a deal. So just fuck it. Fuck it. Go ahead, make what you want to make. Do the best you can. And if anyone calls it cringy, they can get fucked. All right. I think that's all I have to say on that. Till next time.